Welcome everyone. So this is our core topic 1 with our PowerPoint or webinar on protein. So proteins are part of the basic structure for body cells and tissues. We have DNA that then forms RNA, which then forms a protein. Now this is a little bit of biology. You really just need to understand that proteins are macronutrients. They do have functions in the body apart from the fact that they are an energy source. So proteins are made up of several different compounds, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, and they link together to form amino acids. So amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, and you need multiple amino acids to create a protein. There are 20 different types of amino acids, and they're used to synthesize proteins, and the different shape and other properties of the protein are dictated by the sequence of amino acids. So if we have a look at amino acid, we have 3 components: the amino group, which is this end group, the side chain, and the carboxyl group. The amino group here is the one that will change to then synthesize your 20 different amino acids, and depending on the amino group on the end, you'll have different amino acids. So each protein has a particular sequence of amino acids, and the different sequences combine to make different types of proteins. And depending on how many amino acids, you can have a really extensive types of proteins, which is why organisms have so many different types of proteins. So the shape of a protein will dictate its function. So if you've got what we call secondary folding of a protein, where you've got bonds, so you've got a beta chain and an alpha chain. So insulin is an example of a secondary structure folded protein. And then we've got hemoglobin, which is what we call quaternary structure, which actually includes multiple tertiary folded proteins that are combined together. So you can see you've got an alpha chain here and a beta chain here, but they've then been folded into a 3D shape, which is why they're tertiary folded. And then you've got multiple, which is why they're called quaternary folded. So the purpose of hemoglobin is to transport oxygen around the body, which is really important. Other proteins that we have in our body include protein receptors, and they bind to sites that recognize chemical signals, and they allow certain molecules to be moved into and out of a cell depending on whether the receptor is the appropriate shape for that receptor. We've also got muscle fibers that are a type of protein, and they help to contract and expand muscles. And then we also have enzymes that are really important in any sort of chemical reaction that occurs in your body. We've also got collagen, which is there for support, shape, and elasticity of tissues. We've got antibodies that help with your immune system to make sure you stay healthy. And we've also got transport proteins as well, and they transport molecules across the cell membrane, and they can be selective so that only certain molecules can move through that transport protein. So if this is sounding a little bit familiar, that's because we do cover quite a bit of this in biology, so there's a little bit of overlap. So the function of protein, main functions include growth, maintenance, and repair of body tissues. They also help to synthesize enzymes, hormones, and antibodies. And lastly, they do provide a secondary source of energy if you have insufficient carbohydrates or fats in the diet. Other functions of proteins that are not quite as important as the ones on the last slide include contraction and relaxation of muscles, transport of oxygen, which is actually very important, proteins in the blood, such as hemoglobin, and also to help maintain correct fluid balance in the body as well. So proteins do have quite a lot of functions that are really very important to maintain good health and function of your body. So as a summary of the types of functions of proteins, they have both functional and structural roles. And if you can remember these, then anytime a question like this comes up in a test or an exam, you should be fine. So enzymes are used in digestion and metabolism, which we'll be going through in a lot more detail later in this topic. They're used for antibodies to help with your immune system. They have special proteins in the blood, such as hemoglobin. Their structural protein or functions include cell membranes, skin cells, and also enabling muscle contraction and movement, which is incredibly important.
Is found in all animal products, and it's essential to your life because it's part of every cell in your body. The importance of this nutrient, which is really just a large molecule made up of amino acids, has been known for a long time. In fact, the word protein comes from the Greek word proteos, which means of primary importance. In this lesson, we will learn about protein and how it functions in the body. Proteins are all similar in that they are made up of chains of amino acids. These basic building blocks of proteins are linked together by unique chemical bonds called peptide bonds. So you could take a lock of your hair and a pile of scrambled eggs, and even though they look very different, at their molecular core they are both simply chains of amino acids bonded together. Now, we talked about amino acids being the building blocks of proteins, but we could also say that proteins themselves are building blocks of the body. And this brings us to the first important function of protein, which is to provide structure. Structural proteins make up integral parts of your body. For example, keratin is a type of protein found in your hair, nails, and skin that helps give these structures strength. Inside your body, protein provides structure to every cell. Collagen, which is a structural protein found in various connective tissues, provides the framework for the ligaments that hold your bones together and the tendons that attach muscles to those bones. Proteins also regulate body processes. For example, enzymes are proteins that speed up chemical reactions in the body. Without them, basic activities like breaking down the food you eat would happen too slowly to support your life. You can think of enzymes as proteins that shift your body processes into high gear, much like your morning coffee gets your day moving along. Body processes are also influenced by hormones, which are proteins that regulate the activity of cells or organs. Hormones are like chemical messengers that carry an order from one part of your body to another, much like Paul Revere carried the message that the British were coming to the people in his colony. For example, insulin is a hormone that regulates blood sugar by carrying a message to your body cells about how much sugar is present in your blood. Another function of protein is to transport materials throughout your body. A great example of this is hemoglobin, which is the oxygen transporting protein found in your red blood cells. When you breathe air into your lungs, the oxygen molecules from that air wait in your lung cells for a ride on a red blood cell, somewhat like a New Yorker waiting for a taxi cab. Once the oxygen attaches to the hemoglobin of that red cell, it can travel anywhere in your body. Some proteins are protectors and help with immunity. For example, antibodies are proteins that can recognize foreign invaders in your body. These vigilant proteins are like the neighborhood watch, and they work together with other cells from your immune system to help prevent infections, illness, and disease. So we learned that proteins provide structure, regulate body processes, transport materials, and help with immunity. Proteins are like the workhorses of the body, yet they are so selfless that they would give up all they are to carry out their last function, which is to provide energy. You see, in order to provide energy, the protein molecule must be destroyed and broken down into its amino acid parts. Protein is not your body's first choice for energy. That responsibility falls on the shoulders of carbohydrates. But if your diet does not provide enough fuel from carbohydrates, then protein can be used. For example, if you go on a severe weight loss diet, your body will break down proteins and use their amino acids to make fuel. This ensures that your body will always have energy, but staying on a super strict diet also robs your body of the proteins it needs to maintain body structures and carry out necessary functions, leaving you weaker in the long run. Let's review. Protein is a large molecule made up of amino acids that is capable of carrying out many important functions in your body. It can be used to provide structure, like we see with keratin, which is a type of protein found in your hair, nails, and skin, and in collagen, which is a structural protein found in various connective tissues, such as your ligaments and tendons. Proteins also regulate body processes. For example, enzymes are proteins that speed up chemical reactions in the body, and hormones, like insulin, are proteins that regulate the activity of cells or organs. Some proteins transport materials throughout your body, such as hemoglobin, which is the oxygen-transporting protein found in your red blood cells. Other proteins help with immunity, like we see with antibodies, which are proteins that can recognize foreign invaders in your body. And, if the body needs it, proteins can also be broken down to provide energy.
So, animal products aren't the only source of protein. We can get plant-based sources of protein as well. So you can, and these are what we call incomplete sources of protein because they don't actually include all the amino acids. And we're actually going to get onto essential versus non-essential amino acids. So essential amino acids are the ones that must be supplied by the diet because your body cannot make these, whereas non-essential amino acids can be synthesized in the body. So of the 20 different amino acids, sorry, 23, but there are 20 in common, there are 8 or 9 if you're an infant that are essential and must be consumed by the diet. So those essential amino acids are these ones here. I won't worry about reading them out. And the non-essential amino acids are these ones. So not all complete protein or not all protein sources are created equal, and we have what we call complete and incomplete protein sources. So complete proteins contain all the essential amino acids, and they have what is considered to be a high biological value. So they contain all essential amino acids in the correct proportion, and they are all derived from animal products or soybeans. So soy is the only type of complete protein that isn't animal-based. Incomplete proteins, on the other hand, only have partial amounts of the essential amino acids that you require. So they usually lack one or more, and the correct quantity isn't usually not. So some will be either deficient in lysine or methionine. And these are all derived from plant proteins. So what we do to limit that is you can actually pair proteins, incomplete sources of proteins, to form complementary proteins to make sure that you're combining the correct amount of amino acids to get all of your required nutrients. So these proteins have a low quality and therefore have a low biological value compared to complete protein sources. So eating foods that have two different protein sources together will make a complementary protein. So an example of that is rice and beans. So here's an example of all of your complementary proteins. So if you were to combine any of these, so cereals, so if you combine, for example, wheat with peanuts, so peanut butter and whole grain sandwich is a really nice example of a complementary protein. Another one is green peas and rice, or if we're looking at, say, lentils with rice is another really good example. And if you actually think about this, a lot of traditional food actually includes a lot of complementary sources of proteins because in the past you weren't able to always have access to complete sources of protein.
Have you ever spent days putting a jigsaw puzzle together, only to find that the last piece was missing? In order to complete a jigsaw puzzle, you must have all the pieces. This makes a jigsaw puzzle much like protein because in order to provide the body with the protein needed for the repair, growth, and maintenance of the cells, you must have all the building blocks of proteins, which are substances called amino acids. There are 20 amino acids needed by the body. Half of these amino acids are referred to as non-essential amino acids, which means it's not essential to get them from the foods you eat because they can be made by your body using available substances or through metabolic processes. The remaining amino acids are referred to as essential amino acids because they cannot be made by your body, so it is essential that you eat foods that contain them. Some foods are better than others at providing the body with all the essential amino acids it needs, and we can rate foods based on their protein quality, which is a measure of how good a protein-containing food is at providing the essential amino acids. In this lesson, we will look at the high and low quality proteins and how this relates to their completeness. When you eat foods that contain protein, your digestive system breaks down the protein molecules into amino acids. Your body can now reassemble these digested amino acids into new body proteins. This breakdown and buildup happens in the same way that a builder might remove bricks from a demolished building and use them to build a new structure. Most high-quality proteins come from animal products. This is because animals and humans share similar body compositions. Therefore, animal proteins, such as meat, fish, poultry, and eggs, are complete protein sources, meaning they provide all the essential amino acids a human body needs. Proteins obtained from animal sources are also easier for humans to digest than those obtained from plants, so we have a better chance of being able to extract the needed amino acids from animal proteins. As you may have guessed, most plant foods are incomplete protein sources that lack one or more of the essential amino acids needed to properly synthesize proteins in the body. Because of this, we can also say that most plant foods, such as grains, legumes, which are similar to beans, nuts, and seeds, are low-quality proteins. There are a few exceptions, including quinoa and soybeans, which are high-quality plant proteins, but these plant foods are certainly the exception, not the rule. The fact that most plant proteins are low quality and incomplete does not mean they cannot be used to help you meet your complete protein needs. In fact, even a vegetarian diet, which is a diet that contains mostly plant-based foods with only limited animal products, can provide all the needed amino acids by combining two or more incomplete proteins. In a way, you can think of incomplete proteins helping each other out. For example, beans are low in the amino acid methionine, but this amino acid is abundant in rice. So by combining beans with rice, a complete protein is created. These are called complementary proteins, or two or more incomplete proteins that become complete when combined. Incomplete proteins do not need to be combined in the same meal to be considered complementary. Eating a variety of plant foods over the course of the day is sufficient to provide all the essential amino acids your body needs to work properly. Let's review.
Okay, so in terms of looking at protein as a source of energy, it supplies approximately 17 kilojoules per gram of energy, so very simple to similar to carbohydrates, and they are a secondary source of energy. So the body cannot store excess protein. What's used tends to be excreted. However, proteins form muscles that can be recruited during starvation and severe disease. So you can actually get the breakdown of protein through muscle wasting. So in terms of daily kilojoule intake, you should be consuming about 15 to 20% protein, and that can be either complete or complementary proteins. As a general rule, a person's weight and age can determine the recommended amount of daily protein that they should consume. And it's a rough guide that for every kilogram of body weight, you should eat 1 gram of protein a day. So roughly women require 0.75 grams of protein per kilogram, whereas men who tend to have a higher muscle mass than women will require 0.84 of a gram per body weight. And women and men and women that are over 70 require higher 1 gram of protein per body weight because they are of an older age and require that muscle more so. So if we were to then work that out, how many grams of protein will an 85 kilogram male need? So 0.84 per gram, per kilogram, and then 85 kilograms equals 71.4 grams of protein. Now, some people will choose to have different diets, which means that they don't actually have access to a lot of complete protein sources. So we've got, you might be familiar with vegan and definitely vegetarian, and then we've got what we call lacto-vegan and lacto-ovo-vegetarian. So a lacto-vegan diet is where they avoid all meat and eggs but include some dairy foods, and a lacto-ovo-vegetarian means they avoid all animal products except milk, milk products, and eggs. And then a vegetarian is for someone that doesn't eat um, like animal meat, but will eat any byproduct, or they might eat chicken, or they might eat fish. That's pescatarian as well. So protein deficiency will result in some growth being inhibited because they don't have enough protein to grow properly. You might have poor hair or nail development. You tend to have a weaker immune system because your proteins can't form antibodies that keep you healthy. You may also result in anemia if you have insufficient hemoglobin, which carries oxygen around your blood, and you could have a difficulty with having the correct fluid balance. So two protein deficiency diseases are kwashiorkor and marasmus. And kwashiorkor usually developed is in third world countries, and marasmus is more common in third world countries in Australia as well. So kwashiorkor is insufficient energy and as a result insufficient protein. So fat stores and fluid retention might mask the effect. So you might see bloating in the belly. And marasmus is insufficient protein and overall energy due to a depletion of body mass. Now, an excess in protein can result in liver and kidney disorders because your body is then having to over process your body because of all the excess protein that you're consuming.